And we are building a software platform for construction companies, or different tools to manage your team and manage your tools and projects. Before Remato, I was living in Amsterdam, working in Booking.com and design team, research design team. It's actually a huge team. It's currently, I think, more than 200 now, 200 designers in the IT team. That's totally between 2,000, 3,000 people. And it's divided down to like 5 to 10 people teams, and each team actually works really similarly as kind of a startup, as much as it could in a corporation like that. And usually, the teams from this, there are more like full stack teams. You have designers, developers, product owners, and so on. And actually, meanwhile, I was still working on some freelance projects in Estonia as well. And before Booking in Estonia, most of my time went into designing the smart ID apps, and then it's still in some part continuing. So a little bit more about Remato. As Emma mentioned about business cards, I also like to think about different solutions for business cards, because they're usually the same exact shape and white paper, and so this is our business card. Here's some hints of our current app design, or soon to be. It's in the works still. But this illustrates a little bit what I like to do when I design processes of apps or platforms or any kind of UI. I like to print it out. It's actually black paper printout on our walls. I probably will see some pictures later on as well. But this is something a habit that I really got into me in Booking, where they had huge, large format printers in every floor, and you just, whenever you had something ready, you just print it out, you put it on the wall, and then the whole team can just destroy it, and then you iterate. And that's really fun to actually have it really. You can touch your design with your hands and work with it. So the whole design process, for me and for everybody else, it's just solving problems, and it's not even just the designers. It's any team member in a product team, and solving problems kind of eventually comes down to making decisions, lots of decisions. You have to make tons of even tiny but still decisions every day, and I want to talk a little bit about testing your designs and testing your ideas and doing research before that. And the whole point of any of those words I just mentioned is to reduce uncertainty in making those decisions while you solve problems. So, if has somebody of you heard about Booking.com's A/B testing format? No. Yeah, usually, in some events I've seen, they're really famous about how much it's actually one of the most A/B tested sites in the world, and their whole development process basically comes down to A/B test. Every change you make, it's always A/B test. You never just push something. Even easy fix, you never do it without testing it. And
each idea you have to experiment on top of that, and it's really important to also kind of know why you're testing or how you are testing it, because even if you have a really good idea and you don't know how to prove if this idea is good or not, and you don't know how to measure that, or what kind of, do I need to measure active users or some kind of drop off somewhere, or if you don't know that point, then even if the test is successful or it fails, the information might be totally useless if it's not measured correctly. But there's something behind the whole testing thing, is that you cannot ever do it in an environment like I'm right now in Remato. Like, it just doesn't make sense if you don't have like lots of users. Otherwise, the test will just be also useless. And this is something that Booking.com really helped a lot. Like for the whole development team, it was really easy to use the platform itself as one of the main tools to develop the platform. Just some numbers. So this is the main KPI that they are measuring is room night. Basically, if anyone puts up some accommodation on the platform, then you have full amount, let's say full 300 plus years in days in a year, and you can sell only those units. You don't have any more. So and those are the units that they are counting. And every day there's 1.5 million room nights booked, which is like 18 rooms in a second. And if you actually put them all, if you would imagine it would be only one room that you book, it would be booked for more than 4,000 years, just for one day. But A/B testing is not. It was not the only way that you validated ideas. It was also, especially if it was more in the early stages, you don't have the feature already in the product, or there's something more experimental, then you need something else, and user testing was really good for that. In their headquarters in Amsterdam, they have a whole floor that's full of, not full, but there's like 5 to 10 rooms like that. Those are the user testing labs, and the glass that's like over here is actually mirror glass. So on the other side there's the user that you're testing with and the interviewer, and the whole team is behind the glass, like in CAI movie, and like making notes and discussing stuff. And usually, yeah, there's depending on what you're testing. Here they are testing something on the desktop, obviously, and but yeah, you have cameras recording the user face expressions, their hands, what they're doing, and also the screen. And the screen, at least from two different points of views. One is like where they're capturing the screen and the user interacting with at the same time, like from somewhere, like from the side, and the other one is just full screencast. And the same thing goes with the mobiles. You have actual cameras attached to the mobile and everything like that. And it's pretty cool if you have a company has provided you an environment like that to work on. And usually, whenever we did testing in those environments, then we have a team of researchers as well, who were basically every team had one researcher for them. They weren't like permanent team members, but whenever you wanted to do a new test or something, then you contacted them, and they actually helped to put together the whole scenario of how to run this full day user lab. And basically, yeah, the whole team usually took the full day. In the morning, first user came in, you did an hour with first person and so on, and usually like up to 10 people per day. Yeah. And besides A/B testing and user testing like that, there's even more different varieties that were practiced in there and in my team as well. There's shadowing. You just either you go to. Sure.
Where did they get these users? Is there some kind of criterion that you said that you want this kind of users, or how this getting users for testing? How this process was?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that was something that interested me as well. The first time I saw that this kind of stuff is happening in there, but that's actually one part of the job for the research team. So if you as a product owner or designer or the product team approaches the researcher, then usually you have something that you already know that you want to test. You maybe have even a mock-up or some kind of HTML prototype, and then you just do a brief intro to the researcher what you need and also it's really important on what the area of the product you're working with, and then you kind of put together a map of what kind of users you want there. And usually they try to, like, since it's usually one day and you can fit maximum up to 10 people into one user lab day, then they try to pick people who are let's say to have as a much variety as possible within those 10 people. But the process how to find them is a somewhat mystery still to even me. But they have a network over there, and there are a bunch of service-based companies who actually kind of facilitate this connection, that companies who want random users from the street, then there are platforms where they can be easily found. But yeah, usually strictly per criteria. So yeah, shadowing is another method. Basically, we did different kinds of shadowing. Depending again on the product, but usually it's more done when you are doing something for professional user. At least in booking, for the end user, the shadowing is a little bit more harder because people did lots of traveling and actually went to the trips together with someone who is not from Booking.com and just made all the notes what you do during your trip. So yeah, many people who actually worked with the end user side of the product got to travel a lot. That was the one good part. But I was mostly working with partner sites of the product where the accommodation owners actually have to register and sign up and onboard and grow their portfolio. So we also simply went to their offices and shadowed them the whole day, tried to see what are the problems that they're facing, and usually scheduled those times in areas where they were actually focusing on managing their properties, because also in the office sometimes they do stuff that's not relevant for us at all. And of course, interviews. Basically, in Booking at least, they invited them to the office and sat down. And again, usually for the interviewees who visited us, it was full day for them as well. So like, let's say, for example, 5 people came in, different types of property owners. Maybe one owns a hotel chain, another one is just someone who has an empty apartment at the other side of the city. And they took full day, and then whoever team wanted to have time with those users just signed up, and then the people just were sitting in one meeting room, and then every hour another product team came in and shoot them with questions, and it was pretty intense day for them actually, not for us. Then there's diary study. This was something that I personally didn't do much, but it's the point behind it is you gather as much information and behavioral information about your client as possible. And after you have that information, then you can use it to create personas or storyboards out of it, and have some kind of structure that you know is based on your customer, and then you can use that model later on to test different ideas if it fits in there or not. But yeah, pretty much. Street testing, that's also something where depends of, I didn't do it much again because it doesn't make sense to just jump on the street and show them some kind of professional tool on your desktop. It doesn't really click with them. So it's more about the end user stuff. And remote testing was also something that actually I personally really enjoyed because it was super fast. It's really similar to user testing, so basically just throw a prototype or whatever at them, and you define all the tasks that they have to accomplish, or let's say you need to sign up your company in Booking.com and put up 2 properties or something like that, and then they kind of are in the mindset and do it. But the remote part means that there are more platforms I think, but we used usertesting.com, so it's a web platform. You can define your, you can put in your link to the prototype or mockup, and then you have to define inside the platform or your questions and tasks which steps they have to take. And then the platform helps you to, the same question you asked, that where do they find the people? There's the platform, actually, you define the criteria and they find the people for you. And it's quite, at least from current point of view as a startup player, it's very expensive. Like one test is like, I don't know, like 500 euros or something like that, and I don't think there's much money for now. And the last one is a little bit more extreme, but in some cases could work really, really well, is when you can actually include the customer at least for one day or design sprint or some hackathon into your product team, and get their perspective into the team. So that's how stuff was working in Booking.com, and now we are in Remato moving super fast, and stuff changes all the time. They're like the same story as you hear from any startup people. But how do you actually validate your ideas in a setup like that? As I said previously, I personally really like to print out my stuff. So there's some of our app designs on our office walls, and it's actually second iteration already. So we kind of already struggled where to find empty space where to stick them. But so about testing the ideas we have, so we kind of try to all the time. Currently, we try to map out the idea as clearly as possible with every step, so we have the full picture, and then print it out, put it on the wall, and then the next day you come back and see if it makes sense to you or not. The second iteration of this mobile design we have here actually was that we spent the guy in the middle team. We spent with him the whole night designing the mobile time tracking for construction workers, and it was like 2 a.m. or something, and we decided like, okay, it's almost perfect. It looks so good, even all the lines connecting different views, it looks so good. And then we spent another 6 hours until the early morning because we still found new things. So, but we really wanted to push to actually fix it in some point, and then we can just later on again kind of try to destroy it and find what's not working in there. But since you're on your own, you don't have design labs, you don't have researchers who will find that source for you. You don't maybe even have time to go on the street to show random people. But we try to show as much as possible the designs in the early stage also to our clients. So we meet really often with our clients, and we just first, of course, they know whatever is currently live, but we also show them the development version, what's coming next, and then we show designs as much as possible and gather feedback. But we haven't really even had thought about facilitating a proper user test because there's just not enough time. And that kind of ends up with, for the product side, you constantly have to make bigger decisions with a lot more uncertainty because you just don't have time to prove it or disprove it. One thing what I really like to keep in mind in an environment or setup like that is you have to know that you are wrong at some point in times. You can do wild guesses and you will make decisions that definitely will be wrong. You're never going to be always right. And when you know that, then you with every decision or every new feature you make or whatever you try out, try to break it as fast as possible, or try to prove it that it doesn't work and fail fast, because otherwise we'll just waste way too much valuable time. I wanted to briefly touch design systems as well, because that's something again that really kind of took me in the Booking.com. They really did it really nice. I actually have screen. So the thing is that they have like around 10 to 20 people team that's every day working on their inside design system and in-house tool, desktop tool that actually manages the system face quality. It looks like that. There are lots of, some borders are gone, but you can see there's navigation. Basically, you have at the top, you can choose your iOS, Android, or web, the 3 platforms. Then you have the items, color specification, type, icons, units, and then all the components. And some components are built from other components. And you have quite long list. There's at least 3 or 4 times more than you can see here, or maybe even more. And at the center you have the visualization of whatever you are looking at, and then you have 2 tabs over there. First one, documentation, where basically every kind of detail about that component is wrote down, and then implementation part is actual code examples, all the modifiers you can tweak, whatever stuff like that. And this is super useful both for developers and designers, because I'll show you here. So on the left side there is the tool, on the right side there's Sketch, and inside the tool where you have all the documentation, you can just drag and drop items, and the components are built in by the Sketch library system. And it works really nice also with all the modifiers, and you can tweak settings and whatever content and title inside Sketch already. And this was the magic. I mean, if you have this kind of tool in your hands, and you're just trying to build new product flows or iterate or existing stuff, then you can. It gives you such a speed that that's really nice thing to have. Something more they had. So there's a color example here. Whenever you had color chosen, like the green here, then it shows on top of other colors with the A's if it's like passes as a readable or not readable. So that because there's so many product teams where designers are doing their own work, and nobody has time to like kind of be aware of what's everybody doing at the same time. So there's kind of system that worked really well, and everybody worked consistently. The color thing actually is pretty funny, because they started building the whole system like 2 years ago now maybe, and before that they actually officially in the brand they had the same color scheme as you see here, but reality in the app code, when they did some kind of analysis, there was more than 10,000 different variations of the yellow, more than 10,000 different variations of the green, and so on, because like everybody just copy pasted or took a screenshot and then copied the color from there, and there was so many tiny different nuances of the colors. And it was kind of the pain also to get it out of the system because it was defined everywhere. So for us in Remato, we are also already really thinking ahead with the whole design system thing, because the product itself is maybe not that complicated yet, but we see how complicated it will become soon. So and we try to build the system as the product itself. So we don't manage any kind of huge sketch files or any like outside tool where we keep documentation of the system or anything. We just have the component built into the system in the front end, the pieces, and basically this is the most up-to-date stages of the whole design system. And so far, it's already showing marks of working out pretty well, but we are just taking the baby steps, and maybe if you see me in half an hour, you can ask how we are doing about that. Hopefully good. So yeah, design is a team sport for me. And that's something that I also learned in Amsterdam because before that I was for many years freelancing, and even before freelancing, all the companies I worked at, I was mostly the only designer working on any project. So, and in some cases I was only the only designer working in the company, so I kind of grew into my career as the lonely wolf doing only my thing, and it kind of the design is a team sport doesn't even mean that you need the design team and you need to hire more designers or keep close to your designers, other designers. It's more about design as something that you do with your whole product team. You don't leave out developers, you don't leave out even salespeople or whoever else, whoever is actually has touch points with the product and is responsible in some cases of some decisions. They should be included in the design process, and yeah, do stuff together. We actually like to do with the middle guy Siim standing up. He's our product owner, and we are literally standing in spending many nights in front of the big IMAX screen and just co-designing together in Sketch. And whenever we have something, we print it out and then iterate. Some examples how we printed stuff out. How some cases we just did those quick like brainstorms type of things that to gather as much idea from inside the team about stuff that we are working on. Yeah. There's another example. This one is probably you won't see much information on the picture, but it was one of the biggest processes that our department started there. I was working in a team that was in a department called Booking Home, which is basically like the most simple way to explain it is direct competitor to Airbnb, the whole home accommodation space, and it was an area that was simultaneously worked together or built together by almost 5 or 6 teams, and they didn't have that much cooperation all the time because they had different business needs. Last summer, all those teams came together, and basically we just destroyed the whole onboarding process, how you sign up a property and how you register your account, and we did it multiple times. And this is the way we do it in Remato as well. We just take whatever we already have, and then we just pick into pieces and start all over again and see what we come up with, and then we decide if it's good or we have to go to another round. And always include everybody who wants to be included. And whenever you test anything or whenever you do team hackathons, research, and stuff like that, write it down, do pictures, document as much as you can. You will regret if you don't. And in some cases, like we did almost like a week-long design sprint, and we kind of like we remember everything, and like it's obvious. Like I just worked through this, and then 2 weeks later, like we had a really good idea over there, but what was it? And then you're back to square one. That was quite fast. Thank you. Maybe you have questions. I can.
Why did you leave Booking?
Why did I leave?
Why did you leave it?
Mainly because I wanted to start a startup.
Ah, okay.
That was a long dream already, and I figured that now is the best time, and then it happened.
Then another question: how many hours a day you spend on what you do on the professional work?
A lot, maybe even too much, but I think more than 10 definitely.
More than 10?
Yeah, average I would even say maybe